Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell Rhodes.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone, and thanks for joining another episode designed to help you better lead at the top of your game. Now, as you know, for Season 3, each month we're featuring leaders who have fascinating roles in a particular profession or industry. And today's episode is part of our special series featuring Chief Technology Officers and VP-level leaders who lead expansive technology teams. And now, enjoy the show.
Hey there, superstars. Welcome back to another episode of the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast. We are extremely pleased to have on today's show Zach Evans, who's the Chief Technology Officer of Xsolis. Now, Xsolis is an AI-driven health technology company whose differentiator is human-centered approach, which is something that's definitely needed in the healthcare industry and technology, if I do say so myself, but we're going to talk to Zach about that in just a minute. Now, Zach is responsible for using Xsolis's proprietary real-time predictive analytics and their tech platform to support the business operations of their clients. So welcome to the podcast, Zach.
Thank you for having me, Karen. I'm really looking forward to this and really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and your listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. We cannot wait to dive into some of your perspectives in the health tech industry, as well as, you and your day-to-day role. But before we dive into that great insights and information, we'd love to hear just a little bit about you. So just for as much as you feel comfortable, can you give us a little sneak peek into your life outside of work?
Yes, certainly, Karen. So I live just south of Nashville, Tennessee, which is, over the last several years has become a little bit of an it city around the country. We have a lot of people moving here. It's a great, vibrant city to be a part of. It's also kind of a healthcare mecca, which makes it kind of fun to live here. But I'm raising, along with my wife, actually 4 kids, ranging in age from our daughter's 13, and then we have 3 sons that are 15, 17, and 19. And so, my life outside of work is filled with a lot of energy, a lot of sleepovers and carpools and sports and all the fun things that get to fill those hours. So it's just, I feel very fortunate to do what I get to do every day when I come to the office. But my most important job is being a dad and a husband every day. And they're the reason why I get up in the morning. So, yeah, that's a little bit more about me.
Oh, that is wonderful. Sounds like you have a fantastic family. And what a range of ages, because they're all at kind of different points and growing to be young adults. And you're going through those teenage years, which is so exciting. My husband and I just became empty nesters, so we're getting adjusted to that.
Yeah.
But you're a bit far away from that.
we got a couple more years before we get there.
Yeah.
We're already starting to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. We dearly love having the kids at home. Our oldest is just finished his freshman year at college, and he's home for that first summer.
Nice.
And it is one of those things like, look, mom and dad are still here. Like, say hi to us every once in a while, ships passing in the night kind of thing. But those ages are fun. A lot more independence. Which is both a blessing and a curse, right? That they need us a little bit less, but the things they bring to us are typically a little bit harder to deal with. I'm sure they're bigger things that we get to deal with our kids now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I will say there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, and they are still and will always be a part of your lives.
Absolutely.
We're enjoying it, but we talk to them every day, and they, one is literally 8 minutes down the road. So,
that's a blessing. Yeah, that's great. Well, we hope that they all live close, not with us, but close, and everything will be good.
It'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your kind share. We appreciate that. All right, Mr. Zach. Well, let's start out by you sharing with our listeners a little bit of how you got into the technology function through your career? How did your career start out, and how did you get to Xsolis today?
Yeah. So I kind of came to technology from a little bit more of a non-traditional route. I came from really kind of the business side. Very early in my career in the early 2000s, kind of in the middle of the dot-com bubble, I was working for a company as about 100 plus year old company. And they said, hey, you're just out of college. You probably know how to do all of this e-commerce stuff. We want to build an online presence. And so that was really my first exposure to technology. I had to start working with engineers. We had to start figuring out how to sell things online. And it was a ton of fun. But I came to it from the business side of the
Mm.
conversation rather than from the true kind of engineering technical side.
You
But
think
really
that was a pro or a con?
it's a little bit of both, right? The good news is, because I mean, one of the biggest challenges facing technology leaders is their ability to really understand business drivers and then communicate value back to non-technical individuals.
Right.
Well, since that's kind of the area I came from, that's always been a little more natural to me. But the reality is when you're dealing with engineers, engineers are really good at kind of sniffing out folks that don't necessarily know what they're talking about. Right. And so I spent, early in my career, I'd spent a lot of time kind of building that credibility of, yeah, I know I wasn't a computer science major or a computer engineering major or something like that, but I really understand technology and I can go really deep with engineers into architectural considerations and other things like that. So it's both a blessing and a challenge to overcome. Yeah, but so that was really my first entree into technology. Again, being in Nashville and kind of being this healthcare capital, I knew that I wanted to try to get into the healthcare industry at some point and kind of made that transition with a couple startup companies, real small, like pre-revenue type startup companies, and helped build out a couple technology platforms. We actually built a SaaS technology platform in 2005 before SaaS was even a thing, which was a lot of fun to build that out. It was some software that was focused on nurses and helping nurses manage their kind of career paths, which was a really interesting space. I took a tour about 8 years through this little company called HCA Healthcare, which is a Fortune 100, $50 billion company based here in Nashville, 300,000 employees, a really large healthcare provider. One of the fun facts that HCA always liked to talk about was more babies are delivered in their hospitals every year than on the entire continent of Australia. So it's
Oh,
kind of
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I learned a ton at my time at HCA, but the biggest thing was about how you operate at scale, because that's what their business model is. And then I came to Xsolis. It was an interesting journey. I had known one of the co-founders for a couple of years, and they actually came and pitched me as a prospective client while I was at HCA. And just through conversations, I was starting to feel the itch maybe to get back to something a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And this really interesting company named Xsolis popped up on my radar screen. They were looking for a chief technology officer, and I decided to kind of step back into kind of that small and mid-sized business space, kind of
Mhm.
that a company that was ready to scale rapidly as a business operations. My first year with the company, I guess we had just passed the 5-year mark, and we implemented more clients in that year than we had in the previous 5 years combined. And the growth has just kind of continued from there. So I've been the CTO with Xsolis now for a little more than 6 years. I love coming to work every day. It's a ton of fun. It's an important area of the healthcare market that we live in. That is, a lot of people outside of the industry don't really have a lot of visibility into in terms of what we do, but it's a great thing to be able to take this technology and apply it to these real world problems and really help hospitals and insurance companies just much better exist in a frictionless marketplace. Yeah.
So, I had a chance to look up Xsolis as well, and you all are doing fantastic,
Thank
work
you.
of, in my opinion, Karen's humble opinion. But I'm sure there are a ton of challenges these days as fast as technology is advancing. Now Gen AI is on everybody's vocabulary, and they're trying to feverishly learn more about that. And just, managing teams, tech teams can be very complex. And so I'm just curious, what is your approach to leading, just your overall high level approach to leading technical teams and being in creating effective, high-performing technical teams?
Yeah. Technology and people that live in the technology space, right? We kind of get our energy from how fast things are always changing, right? And then, 18 months ago, this little thing arrived on the scene called ChatGPT, and it's like we all went into this this hyperdrive type mentality of just things changing, every minute, every day kind of thing. And so even for technologists, the rapid pace of change has left us all kind of panting a little bit, right? It's been even more interesting than what we've seen before. I think for engineers, I think it certainly extends to non-technical people as well. But for engineers, at their very nature, are problem solvers. It's why they're drawn to technical disciplines. They like wrestling with things, but the reason why they like solving problems is because they like solving problems for other people. Even your most kind of the introverted, right? The Hollywood stereotype engineer that sits in a dark room drinking, Mountain Dew and eating Doritos all day.
Right.
What gets them up every day, what makes their fingers fly across their keyboard is that they're trying to solve real problems for real people. And so when you're trying to lead a team of high performing engineers, I think it's critical to start really from a place of empathy. It's to really see and value the engineers for not only the gifts that they have and what they can do for your business or for your company, but to really get to their heart, which is they're problem solvers. And they get very frustrated when they can't solve a problem, when they're blocked by something. They get really frustrated when they miss the mark. They thought they solved the problem, and then it turns out that they can't, or that they didn't. And so as a leader, you have to bring a tremendous amount of empathy to meet those engineers where they are and help every day just keep them connected or reconnect them to the mission and to the problems that they're trying to solve. And that's the best way I know to really keep them engaged and just really, just doing the amazing work that they're capable of doing, because at their heart, they're problem solvers.
The problem, and they love to do it. I know. I don't know if you knew, but I worked almost 14 years at Microsoft, but it was in the HR functions.
Yes.
But, when you're in technology, you have to be a superpower user and stay on top of the industry, no matter your job role. And one of the things that used to always be interesting, an interesting dynamic is when, and I don't know if this happens at Xsolis, but when the sales teams go and hear requests from the customers, and then they bring it back to the techs and the engineers of, hey, they want this kind of customization or these features added or what have you. There's an interesting tension between what the customers desire and what the text can produce in light of your longer term plan on how you're scaling your technology. So I don't know if it was just us that we experienced it, but is that something that Exelis experiences as well? And how do you help them manage that, and still be friends with the sales teams?
Absolutely. No, I wish it was unique to Microsoft, right? And that Microsoft would be the only company that has that challenge, right? Look,
Right.
I think one of the most difficult conversations to have inside any organization is when you have to say no to something, right? Because you genuinely want to be able to say yes to things. But one of the things that one of the mantras that I talk to my teams about all the time is like, look, like at some point we have to get to kind of some semblance of prioritization. And because we have, there's always constraints. I don't care if you're a company the size of Xsolis or if you're a company the size of Microsoft, you never have enough of everything to do all the things you want to do. There's always constraints. And as soon as you introduce constraints, it means you have to talk about prioritization. And one of the hardest lessons to learn is that if everything's a high priority, then in reality, nothing's a priority.
That's right.
And so our ability or the need to say no from time to time, or perhaps more importantly, you're not saying no, you're just saying not right now, right? It's not Q2, it's Q3 or Q4, or maybe it's next year. And then to have the hard conversations when something does actually become a no. My viewpoint is, because I've been a customer on the other side of the aisle, right? Right now, I'm a vendor. I've been a customer before. I'd rather have a vendor tell me, look, that's just not on our roadmap. And here's why, right?
Right.
And we understand that this may be important to you, but here's why it's not. I'd much rather have a vendor actually tell me no and explain the why than keep
Stringing
stringing
you
me
along.
along.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, that's so frustrating.
it's so
As a
frustrating.
consumer. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And, we think we're actually providing better service because we're not actually saying no. But really, what you're doing is you're frustrating your customers because they don't understand why you're making the decisions you're making.
Yeah.
And that's a hard lesson to learn. Yeah.
It is a hard lesson to learn. It absolutely is. And I am one of those nerdies. I do admit that when there are different technologies that we use in our firm, if there is a feature or we'd love to see, we do submit it for consideration. So
Great.
we're one of those probably people that they want to throw tomatoes at or shoot our faces on dartboard. But, we try to contribute to how we actually use. But I know how that information is needed, whether you're able to address it or not, that you get that feedback so it can be incorporated into overall planning. So
Absolutely right. I mean, look, I think one of the biggest mistakes companies can make is to think that all good ideas just come from inside the business,
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
And I mean, good ideas can come from anywhere. They do come from inside the business. They come from other areas of the organization that have nothing to do with product development, but someone has a good idea. And they absolutely come from customers and the industry at large. And yeah, it's just you have to keep a wide lens to try to gather all those nuggets that you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Zach, I want to pivot a little to our listeners always love examples or case studies or, the good, bad, and ugly of going through transitions. And you were so kind enough to share that Xsolis used Dragonfly to help it scale.
Yes,
And I know I'm not going to do it justice by telling the summary. So I'd love for you to share with us the story of the decision of what Dragonfly is, number one,
hmm
and then how did you all use that to help you scale to the success that you all are having today?
absolutely. Well, so Dragonfly is Excel's next generation SaaS platform that we spent. It's been probably 195% of my time. It feels like from time to time for about the last 3 years or so.
Oh, wow.
And
Awesome.
so, yeah, so what we had to do as an organization. So fairly early on in my tenure with Xsolis, I became pretty convinced that while the value we were delivering to our clients was very real and very tangible, that we had some roadblocks in our way. That were going to keep us from being able to scale. And one of those, candidly, was our technology infrastructure and architecture. So we had built, prior to me joining, the company was 5 years old by the time I got there, right?
Right.
We had built a SaaS platform. And as you have with a lot of small startups, you don't know what you don't know, and you have good ideas. Some of them turn out to be true. You have good ideas, and some of those couldn't be more false. And so we had a platform that was working to our customer. It looked like it was working, and it was working, but it was relatively unsustainable. Our ability to scale the business on this technology platform was both going to be really, really difficult and take a tremendous amount of human capital investment. And it was
Mm.
also going to be really, really expensive. We leverage AWS for everything that we do, Amazon Web Services. And, when I first joined the company, we were spending, $10,000, $12,000 a month, and it was on one of the co-founders' credit cards, right? And a couple years later, it was like we had this massive AWS bill and with no end in sight. And so I became convinced that we needed to do something pretty radically different. For a while, as an organization, we kind of nibbled around the edges. Could we do some small projects here and some small projects there to try to extend the life cycle of this platform, which we called Cortex? And within a relatively short period of time, we realized, that just wasn't really going to work. And so we made the decision. I mean, here we were, we had, several hundred hospitals live on a system. We were delivering real value. We were implementing new clients every month. And we made the decision to basically start over from scratch. So we literally, from a technology perspective, We literally rewrote our entire platform from the ground up. We didn't bring over any code. We didn't bring over really any of the tech stack. We started with a blank piece of paper that said, look, at that point, the company had been around 7 years or so. We said, look, we've learned a lot in 7 years. So let's start with a blank piece of paper and say, let's build what we need to build now, knowing what we know today, but also with a view out to the future. How do we avoid things like vendor lock-in? How do we leverage highly scalable managed services? Where are we actually creating value with our platform? Because those are the things we really need to invest in and really own that intellectual property. And what are other areas of our platform that look, these are critical functions, but there's not really a competitive advantage here. And so we can go buy something, or we can go use a managed service to develop that portion of the application while we really focus on where we're driving value over here.
And you were doing this all while keeping your current version live for your clients
Yes.
and supporting that while creating version 2.0, if you will, for the future. Is that correct?
And no, that's exactly right. And
And
so
when did you get to sleep, Zach?
not that much. That's part of my journey over the last couple of years, right? Well, because really what we had to do, Karen, was because of exactly what you said, we needed to pivot from a technology standpoint to be able to better service our clients long term and be able to provide a platform for growth. And so in a lot of respects, we really kind of created a startup within our own company. We had, and it all reported to me as the CTO, but we had our legacy, our Cortex platform team, and we had our new Dragonfly platform team. And it had its own leadership and its own engineers and their own roadmaps and it's their own product owners and product managers, because we needed to unlearn some of the things that we had learned, right? To kind of start over. Now, did we do that perfectly? We did not. Have we stubbed our toes along the way? We have. That's part of it, right? That's part of the journey. But, late last year, we launched Dragonfly to the world. We brought our first clients live. Those migrations are going well. We have some of our first net new clients that are going live on the new platform as well. And it's been a crazy journey. But it's one that I think really positions Xsolis as a company just to continue to grow as rapidly as we have been.
So if I may, Zach, I'm going to try to ask maybe one layer deeper, pull back the layer of the onion a little bit, because that is tremendous, that whole effort. I can, knowing and observing these going in various tech companies, I know it's no easy feat. So and with clients, they're usually very nervous or hesitant or curious about such a transition. So I'm just curious how you all prepared the clients for the transition to Dragonfly, and were there any hiccups along the way or concerns or things that you all had to tackle as the implementation happened?
Yeah. So it's a really insightful question, and it's one that we wrestled with a lot. So a little bit of history. One of the things we had going for us is in our legacy Cortex platform, we were doing releases to our clients about every 6 weeks. So our clients, thankfully, they were used to a regular update cadence.
Makes sense.
So let's start there, right? We were releasing new functionality about every 6 weeks. And at times they were saying, man, it'd be really great if you could slow down a little bit because we're trying to
adapt what
all
you
of
just
this.
released.
Exactly, right. Okay, so we that's a lesson learned unto itself, right? So, but the good news is we had clients that were kind of used to that cadence. So that was a positive. The second thing, we made a very conscious decision that for this migration, truly from a technical perspective, we wanted it to be little to no impact on the client. Basically saying, look, you don't really have to change anything on your side. Okay. So like all of our integrations, interfaces, customer facing APIs, those sorts of things, if we improved them, they were behind the scenes. The client didn't necessarily know it.
Yeah.
But it also meant they didn't have to re-implement anything on their end. So
Right.
that was a very conscious decision that we made. Now, not every company going down this type of journey has that luxury. We
Right.
did,
That's
but that
wonderful.
that was hugely helpful from a change management perspective. And then what we did, especially for some of our early clients, what we called our alphas and our betas, was we started giving them kind of peeks behind the curtain almost a year before they started migrating, so they could start I don't know, normalizing to, because it looks dramatically different. We streamlined a lot of workflows. We rolled out a bunch of new functionality. So there is a change management exercise that's part of it, but we wanted to give as much of a preview as possible. So let's talk about a lesson learned there.
Sure.
Yeah, I mentioned stubbing your toe earlier. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk about a time when we stubbed a couple toes, right? The good news was those early previews proved to be really valuable. The mistake we made, one of the things I would do differently if I were ever to do this again, was those previews were very much at the leadership level. Okay, think kind of director, manager, maybe even all the way up to like a VP type level,
And I
and they
bet you
got
wanted
it.
the worker bees to look at it.
We didn't do as much with the staff,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
And so, because what we learned, and honestly, we shouldn't have been surprised by it, but was there was a little bit of a disconnect between how the end users were using our system and how their leaders thought they were using our system. I know.
Wow.
Yes, you knock me over with a feather. We're surprised by
Right.
this. And so that was a lesson learned. So as we get deeper into our migrations and our new implementations, spending much, much more time with frontline staff level nurses and employees that are using the system all day, every day. That's
Yeah.
really helping with our change management processes. Yeah.
I love that. And listeners, although this is particular to Zach and Xsolis and his tech team, that lesson can be applied to almost any industry. It's making sure that there's a clear correlation between what the leaders are thinking tech or processes or whatever you fill in the blank is used for, and then what the actual end users are doing. Making that sure
Absolutely.
that connection is aligned is going to be key for a ton of things, for strategic planning, for future investments, you name it. So,
Yeah.
but having said that, Zach, because now it's very clear to me as to why, we always love to ask our guests which of the leadership tactics that came out of our research really resonated. It's really clear to me now why leading with courageous agility really popped for you. And for my new listeners out there, leading with courageous agility is all about having the courage and the fortitude, take calculated risk, or stand up for what you believe in, even if you're unsure of the future or what's going to happen. It's all about making baby steps, even with limited information. So, Zach, curious minds want to know, why did the courageous agility really resonate for you?
Yeah, I think it's a great tactic to talk about, right? Because I thought I saw something. I thought I saw, look, there is a need here, right? I'm using all my experience and past work lives and other things to say, man, we're doing some really great things here, but there's some things that are making me really nervous. And when I first started socializing the idea, it was met with a tremendous amount of skepticism. And not just from my peers, from non-technical folks, but even from my technical teams themselves. And now part of that is, whenever you start talking about a change of this magnitude, look, we're humans. One of the first things we ask is, well, what does this mean for me? And so, from an engineer perspective, it became the concern of, well, am I going to have a place in this new world kind of thing? And so I had to very quickly just begin to have countless, one-on-one discussions, small group discussions, as I just kind of tried to socialize this message. And as kind of momentum started growing, we just started kind of building around that. And candidly, Karen, at that point in time, like, where are we getting the funding for this? Where are we going to find the resources? Right? All of these questions. I didn't have answers to all of those. To your point earlier, how are we going to keep the existing system running while we're doing this new thing? I didn't have all the answers. I knew we needed to do it, but I didn't have all the answers.
But you had to push on, right?
That's right. That's right. But I'll never forget in one of our board meetings, the chairman of our board of directors, who's also a co-founder. He's the co-founder that I had the relationship with that helped bring me to Xsolis. I'll never
Oh,
forget. Yeah, we were talking about this. It hadn't been approved yet. We hadn't green-lighted the project yet, but we were talking about this effort. And he looked and I love and respect Jim. He's a great friend and mentor. And he looked at me in the eye and he said, "Look, he's like, you need to understand. He's like, I hear what you're saying, but you're writing the first line of your professional obituary.
yeah.
One
Wow.
way or the other, this thing's either going to be successful and it's going to be
Or
the
not.
thing that you hang your hat on, or it's not, and you're going to have to own it as the leader." And that was not a negative comment.
Right,
It was
right.
just
No, not
it was
wrong.
just hey,
Put it in
like,
the context.
it is, understand that you are, I may agree with you, but like, this is what this means for yes, the organization at large, but also for you individually. And being able to step out, courage, and say, "Look, like, I think this is the right thing, and we're going to do our dead level best to deliver this." That's a scary
Wow.
thing, right?
It
You
is very
you
much
feel a
so.
little alone in that moment, and
But you're
thankfully, yeah, thankfully because
no,
of the
go ahead.
team. Yeah, I mean,
Uh-huh.
look, it's I didn't do this. We put together I think a world-class team that has consistently delivered. Have we been perfect? We have not. I've got a scratch list up of all the things I would do differently if I ever were to do it again, and it's a pretty good sized list. Um, and that's okay. We had to course correct along the ways, and we thought we were going one direction, and we had to pivot and go. That's part of the process, and we're a better
It is.
team for it. But the team really delivered, and our clients are really starting to see the value of that. But it all came from, I had to step out and raise my hand and say, we need to chart a different course. And here, I don't have all the answers, but here's how I think we need to get there.
That is so amazing. What a story, Zach. Well, with Karen's humble opinion, you are definitely a leader that is leading at the top of their game.
Well,
So,
thank you. It's very kind of you.
well, I want to thank you so much, Zach, for the gift of your time, for being on the episode, the gems knowledge that you shared with our listeners. We're going to have a ton of information in our show notes about you and Xsolis and fantastic things you are doing. But before we let you go, we'd love to give you voice to share where people can find out more about you and Xsolis.
Yes. So best way to find out about Xsolis, you can visit our website, www.xsolis.com, and that's spelled XSOLIS.com. That's a great resource to learn about our company. I am on LinkedIn. My username is Zach Evans. I've been on LinkedIn way longer than I care to admit. That's a great way to reach out to me. You can also find me on Twitter. Also, username of Zach Evans, no underscore, no hyphens or anything. Again, been on Twitter probably a little too long for my own good as well. So those are probably the best ways to reach out to me individually, and then xsolis.com to learn more about our company.
That is awesome. Well, thank you again, Zach, for your time today. I'm sorry we probably could have talked another hour probably, but it
Absolutely.
has been great. Thank you for coming on board.
Well, again, Karen, thank you so much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I can't wait to listen to more of your podcasts and to hear other perspectives as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's so kind of you, Zach. And to you listeners, thank you as well for the gift of your time. We know that there are a million, literally a million, billion other podcasts you could be listening to. So we don't take your time lightly. We appreciate you coming back every week. And please also make sure you subscribe and share with just one friend, because together we will all learn how to better lead at the top of our games. Thanks so much, and see you next week. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.